you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today we have another rock star in the building. We have general manager and talent buyer of Resonant Head, the one and only Patrick Glueck. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
For the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Patrick. Most people right now probably know me from Resonant Head, the venue in Capitol Hill, OKC, 250 cap music venue. I've been here 12 years, married, got a kid on the way. Loving life. I really enjoy what I do right now, and bringing positivity to the world.
Yeah, we were talking before the cameras turned on about your pivots throughout your career, right? So video gaming and animation.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So I'll kind of start back in 2010. I was going to school in Abilene, Texas at a school called McMurray University, graphic design major. And I started dating this girl. She was in the Air Force, got stationed in Oklahoma City. And I thought, well, I'll just follow her. I was like, 22, 23? Nothing mattered at the point, right?
Right.
It's like, and so I moved up here. And before I moved up here, I was like looking for schools, right? Mm-hmm. And I found Oklahoma Christian was like top 11 in the nation for video gaming and animation. I'm like, holy crap, that sounds awesome. I like video games. I've always liked video games.
For sure.
So I was like, I'll just dive headfirst into that. So transferred into Oklahoma Christian. Mm-hmm. No idea what I was getting myself into, but I was just like, this sounds cool. Moving to a different city. Hated it for the first 2 years. I hated the school. I hated Oklahoma City like a lot. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to finish this. I'm going to get my degree and I'm getting out of here. I'm from Houston.
Yeah.
That was
what drove that? Hey, like you were just bored?
I don't know. It was just, I'm from Houston, big city, a lot going on, moved here. And back in 2010, like everything was just about to start ramping up, right? Oklahoma City's pretty cool right now.
Yeah, it's different.
But it wasn't as cool back then. Sorry if you're from here, born and raised, but so went to school. Last 2 years, something just clicked. Maturity, whatever you want to call it. It's a little bit older, but I was just like, I'm doing this. And I was like, just like studying, working on game design, like doing all these final projects. And I just was like crushing it there in the final 2 years and falling in love with designing, 3D content, video games. So graduated, got my major. I did it. And I met my wife while I was at school. She's an art major as well.
Okay.
But started working at this marketing ad company and more. I was just starting to do augmented reality and virtual reality.
Oh, awesome.
Right? Like this was before Pokemon Go, right? Everyone's like, oh, augmented reality, Pokemon Go. It's really, it's similar to that, but different.
Yeah.
And so I was the technologist of the, what do we call it? Emerging Technologies division. It was me, and then it was two of us, and then I left. But yeah, made a lot of 3D content, a lot of VR experiences. Didn't make any video games.
Yeah.
But the latest project that I was doing was called Project X. It was at Frontier City, and it was on the Silver Bullet. Mm-hmm. And we were creating a VR experience to experience while you rode that ride. Okay. If you're familiar with the Silver Bullet.
Yeah. Not with VR, though. That's like a total different thing.
Man, I rode that roller coaster like 27 times in a row.
No way.
And the reason I kept going was because it kept messing up. Like I would be going on turns and going upside down. And in my mask, the world was just spinning around.
Okay.
I was so nauseous.
So your rendering had to move physical, like where you're going, right?
Mm-hmm. Or else like even the like smallest like mistake or movement, like off movement would just like, you're puking.
What is it about the video gaming industry? And to me, it sounds like it's pretty cutthroat. I think the last time I read, it was like 1 in every 10 software engineers in video gaming are laid off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it just like super stressful? Is it super competitive? What is it about video? Because to me, like video gaming is like awesome. Who wouldn't want to do that, right?
Right. You're just chilling, like
Yeah.
diving into a different reality. I think for me, it is very competitive. It's one of the most competitive industries in the world, right? You're trying to make the best game. You're trying to make the most money. Everyone's trying to make the most money and trying to impress people. But for me, it was like, man, you have to stay up to date. Like everything changes week to week. Everything changes. Updates, like you see updates, you're like, oh, it's update 8.3.6.7.8 V2. And you're like, okay.
And that could potentially like break everything.
It can, and it will.
Yeah.
Yes, it always will. And so there's a lot of stressors in that. And probably the main reason I left, it was called Trifecta. Loved that company. One of the coolest jobs I've ever had. I got burnt out. I was home brewing, and I just thought one day, I was like, what if I just woke up and I was just like brewing beer one day, making a living out of that? And I pursued that, and that was the next stage of my life.
No way. That's a huge pivot. I mean, probably most people would have told you you're crazy. Like, what are you doing, right? Did you get some of that feedback?
Oh, yeah. I love it. Yeah, I eat that.
You're
up,
like, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please tell me that. Because I like the challenge. But video gaming, I still play video games. I mentioned to you earlier, I've got a 3-year-old daughter. And when she was born, I just stopped. I sold all my consoles, stopped computer gaming for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And recently have gotten back into it very lightly. I'll never do it like I did before, 8 hours a day, constantly, like just loving it. But 1-2 hours a week, just diving into the stories.
Yeah.
It's still fun. I still
what's
love it.
your thoughts on the metaverse? Because I feel like a lot of kids nowadays, they'd rather be in the metaverse than outside playing or whatever. I even see like grown-ups like buying like real estate in the metaverse. Like, it's getting pretty crazy out there, right?
Yeah, it actually frightens me quite a bit.
Does it?
I think I'm reading this book right now. A lot of people roll their eyes at the books, but I like to read books because I like to have my own opinions on things.
Yeah.
It's called The Anxious Generation. My mom got it for me for Christmas, and it's about that. It's like play-based childhood versus, something else based. Basically, like kids have, like you see kids, they have tablets, right?
Yeah.
So easy for us to get our kids to shut up right now, or stop complaining or whining or stop bugging us.
Yeah.
Hand them a tablet. And they're just glazed over, right? You put on a TV show that they have been asking to watch. But it's so important that kids are playing outside. So it scares me. This generation scares me. And I think every generation has been very different, and I think it'll come full circle, right? Kids these days are kind of realizing, how messed up the world is and what maybe they can do to change that. And so yeah, it scares me.
Yeah, I mean,
Metaverse.
I'm there with you. I'm a big fan of technology, and I'm a quick adapter, so I'm always exploring new technology. But I just wonder, like, man, there's almost like infinite number of places you can visit. Like, the world is so beautiful. Seems like a lot of people are missing out because they're just inside, like gaming or whatever. Right?
Yeah, it's like Ready Player One. Have you seen that or read that book?
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, it's really fun, but there's everything comes with moderation. Yeah, and it's hard to control things.
And you did
like
a
that.
180, so you went like, okay, I'm gonna go brew, right? Why brewing specifically?
I think I just really liked craft beer at the time.
Okay.
I had this was back in 2013. I started a YouTube channel called Making It Grain, and I just reviewed beers.
Okay.
Like 10-minute episodes.
Nice.
I did like 170. It was awful. Like I built this really flimsy table. The quality was really bad. I had like a lapel mic, but I was recording everything on my iPhone. It was fun. It was funny. I had a little bit of a following. And I was doing that to get myself more versed into the craft beer scene. Because back in, 2013, craft beer was massive.
Right.
Like it was just exploding. And now we're kind of seeing it dying, right? It's going back down. But the whole purpose of that YouTube channel was to get me into the craft beer scene.
Okay.
And then I started my job at Stonecloud, and I stopped making the videos. It basically got me to doing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so then on to the next chapter.
Okay. So the other thing I hear about brewing too is that it's super difficult as well. A lot of hard work, a lot of early hours, right? So you go from video gaming, super competitive, and here I am thinking you're going to go to something more relaxed, but it sounds like brewing is just probably as stressful, if not even more so. I don't know. You tell me.
It's more labor intensive for sure. I worked at Stonecloud for 5.5 years. I was one of the first employees. I think maybe 3 or 4. And it's like when you're doing video game stuff, I was constantly just working nights, and I mean like 2 or 3 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
You want to get the quietest part of the day, so you're either super early morning or super late at night. And I'm not a morning person; I'm a night person. And so I would just be up at 2 or 3 a.m. just rendering stuff, creating content, and brewing. Yes, I would wake up at 4:30 to go in and brew.
That's great.
And
That's
do
what
it
I've heard.
10 hours a day. And
Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 surgeries while I was at Stonecloud. Like you're
Jeez.
you're doing things to your back that you definitely shouldn't be doing, and it's not the brewery's fault. They take you through classes, and it's it's just ease of motion. You're like, I don't really want to do this properly or whatever. I just want to man it or whatever
Right.
you say. But it was taxing, and I started there as a cellarman, which is just like doing the cleaning and
Okay.
stuff like that. Became the lead brewer and then left as the production manager.
Nice.
But yeah, it was stressful. It was taxing.
What skill sets or how did you sell yourself to like pivot? Like, you hand in your resume and you're like, hey, I'm an expert. Check out my YouTube channel. Like, this is how I know about brewing.
No, I think it was for me at the time. I was still young. Let's see, I was 27 when Stonecloud opened. I'm 35 now. And everything for me was about personality, So what the initial part of joining Stonecloud was, there was a big craft beer festival that happened every year.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to go pour here because they would accept volunteers to go pour for the breweries. And I was like, I'm going to get there first, and I'm going to pick, because you got to pick who it was like first come, first serve.
Yeah.
I was like, I wanted to work for Stonecloud. I knew that. And so I got there early, grabbed the Stonecloud lanyard first, and poured with them all day, like for 2 days, like 8 hours a day, and was just talking to them, hanging out. And then they were starting the brewery within that year, and then I hit them up and I was like, hey, I want to work here.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, yeah, I know you. Come meet with me. And he showed me around Stonecloud, and then he emailed me back within the next couple of days. He's like, yeah, we want you to work here.
It's amazing.
And I remember him telling me, he's like, I would rather have someone here that I like and know will do a good job and teach than someone who has experience and I might not get along with as much.
Yeah. I see that in the tech field as well. Like, you always hear like lead developers or whatever, they've got a bit of a diva attitude, right? And they're like, hey, I know the code or whatever. And they treat everybody like crap, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes, like, these tech companies will keep them around just because of technical debt or whatever. They're like, hey, we can't let this guy go. He's the one that, started the code or whatever. So I see that in tech as well.
Yeah, they know too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. The brewing industries, there's, so like you were saying with the tech industry, it's like these people can feel like, rock stars of their industry. Right. Brewing's the same way, except everyone gets along, Okay. It's kind of like, man, it was like 6 years of just a big party.
Nice.
Like, I mean, there were days where we'd like start brewing at 5 a.m. and we were just like, let's crack a beer and just like get this day started. And it was
so
never,
regardless if you're like cleaning stuff or you're the head brewer or whatever, just everybody gets along. It's like a team mentality.
You have to, yeah. Everyone leaves at the same time. It's really weird, even though it's like staggered. You just feel this responsibility of like, this is a team. Like, we're all on this together. Like, if you're done with your shift, find someone else to help. And that wasn't a rule. It just was what happened.
Yeah.
For 6 years. It's like, why did we do that? We're tired. And that's probably why, a lot of us got burnt out by the trade.
But it sounds like you navigated through different roles, right? And my understanding is you probably even did like some production there, right? So tell me about that. How did you get involved with that side of things?
It was, so most of what I did there was in the production side.
Okay.
Yeah. So starting, I was basically just like the do it guy. Like, teach me what to do, I'll do it. Like, all the stuff you don't want to do, I'll do it. I'll clean the kegs. I'll wash the outsides of the tanks, the insides of the tanks. I'll, throw the grain in. And at the time, it was like the best job ever. It's like I am helping make these incredible beers. I don't know if you're a beer person, but Stonecloud makes what I think is the best beer in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so everything I learned at Stonecloud was from scratch, which is kind of cool. You can kind of meld people that way and get them to do the things exactly how you envision them, rather than like, we had a few people come and go that were like, actually, this is how I do it. And we would be like, well, you can't do it that way. Like, you have to do it our way. And they would just eventually go back to the way they were doing it, which wasn't a Stonecloud way. And so it's cool to have, like, most of the people that we brought into Stonecloud were from scratch, work their way up.
Okay.
Which is a good way to do it.
One of the things I've noticed about the beer community is sometimes those guys get in really deep. It's kind of like the wine connoisseurs, right? Where they can smell the beer, they can tell you what type of ingredients and all this. Were you ever intimidated by that? Because you're new to the industry, you have to, sound knowledgeable, you have to train yourself up to be able to have these conversations, right?
I think at Stonecloud we felt a lot of pride. And very rarely was I like nervous to give people the beers to try. And I say very rarely because there were times where I would be like, I'm sending this beer to, a band that I like that we're going to try to collab with, or a bigger brewery. Like, we called them hype breweries, right?
Okay.
The breweries that people would wait in line for their like drop releases. But we were so proud of our beer, and we knew it was, in our minds, flawless.
Okay.
But I will say, to kind of tag on that, I became very much a beer snob. Like, towards the end, it became very hard for me to drink at local breweries.
Yeah.
And, even outside of the state, like craft breweries, because I could, if a beer was bad, I didn't want to drink it.
Yeah.
I could taste every off flavor. And that was what was great about Stonecloud, is they taught us how to do that. We did sensory every month. And so if, like, a beer smells like buttered popcorn, we knew what effects that had on the body chemically. And we were just kind of like, man, I don't want this,
Okay.
Like, I wasn't a snob, like to people's face, but in my head, I was like, oh, you know what I mean?
Do they offer food there as well? Like, because I feel like if you know that much, you could probably say, hey, this beer pairs well with this type of food.
They don't. They had been working on that for a really long time. And I think now they're getting pretty close to opening something in their back, like the old boiler room of what that building was.
Okay.
I don't exactly know what it is, but it'll be something like bar brewery related, like fried chicken or something.
Yeah. Cool. So you did that for a while, worked yourself, different roles. And then once again, you got bored, you got burnt out, or you're like, hey, the physical stuff is catching up to me. Like, what drove the next pivot?
I realized I didn't love beer. I realized I just really liked beer.
Okay.
So there was a really big push on to learn the science behind it, which, totally makes sense. Like, I should be doing that. I need to be reading brewing books and science books, and I just couldn't, my brain couldn't grasp it. It almost didn't want to, right? I was like, this is kind of boring. I just want to, like, make cool beer that people like, and has a lot of hops in it, and kind of have that rock star feeling of being a cool brewer. And I got burnt out.
Okay.
Those were the two biggest things,
Yeah.
And I was ready to move to something fresh.
Yeah.
5.5 years is a long time, especially in this day and age. I was just kind of over it. And I'm still friends with all of them. I still love that place. I still go there all the time. But I was ready to move on.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome when people like get burnt out or whatever, like modern day, like, why not? Life is too short. Like, hey, like, try something new, right? Like the days of like, hey, Fred worked at the factory for 30 years and then retired, but he was miserable the whole time.
Oh,
to me,
gosh.
like, that's like wasted, opportunity, right? Like, who knows? Maybe he like wanted to do photography his whole life or whatever, but just worked at the factory because that's what you were supposed to do. That was like steady work or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's so funny. I never, that's so common back in the day. It was like, they're retiring after working for 40 years
like
at this
they worked
job.
for one company the entire career.
Or like an accountant.
Yeah.
40 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
And those guys growing up as a kid, they were never like, hey, I want to be an accountant when I grow up, right? Like, I feel like nobody says that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but you were also into music or what? Like, when does music, come into play?
music came into play early on for me, but it really started becoming the main part of my life, like at the end of high school.
Okay.
I always listened to pop music growing up, Britney Spears, Michael Jackson, Hanson Brothers,
Yeah.
like all of that stuff. It was on the radio all the time. My parents listened to music, but they weren't big music people. And my sisters, when I went to high school, I've got two sisters, they're twins, they're 3 years older than me. So when they were seniors in high school, I was a freshman, and they were kind of hitting that, like, I'll call it craft music, right? The more, non mainstream stuff.
Like what? Like describe some of those bands
Just
or
like,
artists.
it was like a lot of emo stuff, like this
Okay.
band called North Star, like Cute Is What We Aim For, like these real, like some people might know who those bands are, but
Yeah.
All Time Low,
Okay.
stuff like that. And so I became like an emo kid, like a emo, like tight jeans, like colorful shirts, like bleached hair,
Mhm.
and just really started digging into music, which is pretty typical for most, teenagers find their way through music. And got into like heavy metal for a really long time, and then started expanding. I was hated country. Like the sound of country made me uncomfortable. I was just like,
Yeah.
Please get this away from me. And now
Sad, right? It's sad oftentimes, right?
Yeah. Pop country still kind of does that for me,
Mhm.
but I can find something in any genre that I'll enjoy.
Yeah. The interesting thing I've heard is like most people develop their music taste between like the high school years, and then that's it. Like they don't ever explore new music after that. So if you listen to like you said emo music or whatever, like they kind of just stay in that lane and they don't ever want to hear like any new hip hop or whatever's the wave. Like they're just like no.
Yeah.
So
People are really singular towards genres these days.
yeah,
It's nice to branch out,
yeah.
but it's
so,
tough.
So it
We got a
sounds
lot
like
going
you
on.
were into music, and then you're like, hey, why not a career in music next, or what? Like,
I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
music was always there in my life, there with video games, there during brewing. Like we
Mhm.
had, the owner of Stonecloud has really, a family business was Kicker, the speaker company.
okay,
So we always get Kicker things for Christmas, company gifts and stuff. But we would always listen to music in the brewery. We had like
Mm.
Kicker speakers, and we would just have Spotify playlists. And I feel like I ran like 70% of the music that was there. People
Nice.
probably got tired of it. But
so what's the Brewing playlist? Like, what do we listen to?
we had this crazy playlist.
Yeah.
Probably the most played song on the playlist, because everything was just kind of, we would always just joke a lot, was Rebecca Black's Friday.
No,
You know that song?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that song, it was a tradition that it would play like 5 times every Friday.
yeah.
And then I
Not one
started playing it
would
on like
add to the playlist,
Mondays.
by the way. Like,
What's that?
Not one that I would add to the playlist, by the way.
There was a lot of weird stuff on there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 550 songs deep.
Yeah.
It probably still exists somewhere, but
Mhm.
we would play it every day.
It was just probably just about like, as a team, kind of being goofy with the songs,
Right,
the
yeah.
vibe more so than like the actual like music.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
brought on positive vibes, laughter and people singing and dancing, a lot of that.
hmm
But yeah, music, big part of my life, and carried that on to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you sell yourself to that new industry? Because I'm noticing that you're not afraid to take that jump,
Mhm.
but oftentimes to take that jump, you have to sell yourself, right? And you have to say, yeah, I've got these skills, but they're transferable, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I've done brewery, but I'm also into music or whatever. Like, how did you pitch that?
So Resonant Head started between 9 owners, 2 or 3 of which I was good friends with,
Mhm.
and they had told me, "Hey, we just got in with all these people and bought the old Oklahoma Opry," and it was always just conversation, never anything like you should come with us or anything like that. It was just kind of like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, keep me updated with whatever you're doing." Like, I'm so deep into brewing right now. And eventually, I knew that they were just looking for, it was like an event manager and like a bar manager or something. And I had like a 1-year-old at the time.
Mhm.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to, like in the back of my head, they weren't even asking me, but in the back of my head, I was like, there's no way I want to do this, right? Like it just was like
You just saw
eating
John
alive.
saying,
Yeah,
like, what
something
if?
like, well, this could be a new, like the start of something cool, right? And that I can get on board with again. Like same thing I did with Stonecloud, and the tech company was a startup company. It's just a bunch of these startups. But I see it as like big opportunity to grow and to learn a lot. I learned more about I can fix a lot of things now because of brewing. Like I wasn't a tool guy. I was from the Houston suburbs. Like didn't fix anything. I couldn't change oil. That's pretty embarrassing. But I like have never changed a tire or anything.
Okay.
But now brewing, I can do all of these things. Very hands-on. And then so I saw it as like this big opportunity. Like let's learn something new. I like music. It's like the same thing. It just keeps coming back. And so one day, I remember where it was, actually. It was not far from here, a couple miles, Roughtail Brewing Company.
Okay.
I was in the parking lot, and I was with my mom and my dad, my daughter, and my wife. It's just like, I just looked at them. We were in the parking lot. I was like, hey, my friends are opening this venue, and they're looking for this, this, and this. Should I do this? And they were like, no, that's crazy. And so I kind of moved on. And then a week later, it just was like, I should do this. I'm tired of doing what I'm doing. I'm burnt out. I need something fresh. I need something I feel passion for, right? Everyone wants to feel passionate about what they're doing. And I just felt that on the inside of me. I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And it was getting closer and closer. And again, they had not reached out to me. I was just thinking all of this. So I talked to my wife again, and she was like, you know what? If it'll make you happy, because she knew how miserable I was. She's like, do it. So I texted the two guys, and I was like, hey, I might be interested in these positions. And they're like, okay, like come meet with us. And we went to like Powerhouse and had a couple beers over the course of like an hour or so. And it's kind of like a soft interview. And they were kind of telling me what they were doing and what they were looking for. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. Yes, I'm in. We were kind of talking numbers and stuff. And so a couple weeks goes by, and they send me an official offer, and I'm like, I'm just on cloud 9. And I'm like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm helping start a venue, a music venue, which was just the next coolest thing for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I started with Resonant Head. And started in February. Resonant Head opened in April. So just on the beginning, the front side of it.
Yeah. So you get there, and I'm sure, whatever was laid out in that job description turned out to be different than the actual role, right?
So different, not even close to the same.
Especially
thing.
being a startup, right?
Right.
So
yeah, it couldn't be more different. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest surprises that like you got there and you're like, oh, I didn't realize this was part of the job type of thing, right?
So starting Resonant Head feels like 2 years ago, but at the same time, it feels like 15 years ago. So it's like I'm trying to put myself in that mindset, but I remember being like, this is like so easy. Like, I think I was going into it thinking I would be like helping put the stage together, like for shows, like setting up, doing sound and
check,
like
right?
helping load in and like being the guy who was there for the bands. And that was pretty much it. And then pretty soon after, it was like, oh, you should also be the business manager. And, oh, you should also do the marketing and book the bands and, run the venue and, control all of this stuff. And eventually it just kind of became a catch-all thing. And it's, 250 cap venues, hard to run, hard to have multiple. It's just hard to make money. The
break even?
What is the word I'm looking for? It's razor thin. The
margins.
The margins are razor thin. Yeah, it's hard to make money. You're fighting for your life every month to be able to break even. Basically, and in infancy stage, it's even harder to do, right? You're paying off a lot of things that you got loans for and stuff like that. But I've kind of gone in waves on like, this is the most stressed I've ever been, and this is the coolest job I've ever had, and like that. And right now I'm at a very great place. Like, it's what I do is very enjoyable.
Yeah,
and I love it. And it's like I'm able to put my whole personality into it. I don't have really anyone to answer questions to. It's kind of me, and then the owners have given me full creativity and full responsibility. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing you talk, it sounds like you're a builder and you enjoy building things and being part of a startup, and you kind of enjoy like, doing your own thing and having that freedom to make decisions and also probably, have a little exposure to risk. I think like you kind of like that risk. I don't know,
Mhm.
you tell me.
I love the risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't, but that's why she's my wife, right?
Mhm.
She kind of brings me back to reality a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'll still slip into that, free spirited realm where I'm like, no, yeah, this, it's risky, but it'll work.
Mhm.
I'm very optimistic. And I think, yeah, I love learning new things. That's what brings me joy.
Yeah.
It's like doing new stuff.
Even just imagining a music venue like Resonant Head at Capitol Hill a few years ago would just not be like a thing that someone would
Mhm.
want to do, just because the community and the type of people, and like just like something new, and you're bringing all these artists, indie artists and stuff like that. People would be like, hey, I don't know if that's gonna work, right? So
Mhm.
whenever you got there, was that the same vibe, or you're like, hey, Capitol Hill's growing, it seems like downtown just keeps getting closer and
Mhm.
closer to that area, right? So
Yeah,
what was the vibe like?
it was, so we were very ambitious. We were very, like, we thought we were just knocking a grand slam out of the park.
Mhm.
And we had our first two shows. Our first show was sold out, and our second show did like 200 tickets sold, or 250 would be sellout. And we were like, yes, we're doing this. This is easy. And then the next show we sold 6 tickets.
Oh,
And the next show we sold 13 tickets. And
jeez.
the rest of that year, our average ticket sales was probably like 26 tickets. I
Yep.
mean, it was pretty much a failure compared to those first two shows.
Mhm.
And so we just very quickly hit a wall. We had too many employees. We spent too much money on frivolous things. We got a cappuccino machine that we've never used. And we
Nice.
started as a craft beer bar coinciding with a music venue, and no one came. We would have on average 1 to 2 customers a day.
Jeez.
And so we stopped that, like, 7 months in,
Yeah.
and became strictly an event space and music venue. 90% of the things we do are, music, bands, concerts.
Yeah.
And
But I feel like you guys are playful and also exploring with the type of artists that you bring there, and even like theme nights, different concepts, stuff
Mhm.
like that. Is that you? Are you like the brains behind all that and trying new things, or what?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything that happens at Resonant Head, I book.
Okay.
And I like to think I have a pretty broad spectrum of creativity and
Mhm.
what I like and what I think people like. And I have a really good gut feeling on, especially now. At first it's just kind of like, at first it's hard to do because you don't have the control to be like, I can pick and choose what I want to do. You're kind of like, give me anything I can get and I'll pay you guys to come. And we're just paying people and, not selling tickets. People weren't coming. And now 2 years later, it's like, I did the legwork. I reached out to 50 bands a day for, 7 months.
Mhm.
And now people are reaching out to me and being like, can I play here? Can I play here? Can I play here? So I won't say I can kind of pick and choose what I want, but the options are a lot greater now.
Yeah.
And our average ticket sales has exponentially gone up. But yeah, have you been to Resonant Head?
I haven't. I
It's like
haven't.
one of the most beautiful places you've ever been.
Yeah.
You walk in there and you're like, where am I?
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like you're in OKC. It doesn't feel like really you're in 2025. It kind of feels like
Yeah.
you're in this liminal 1980s, like retro
Mhm.
space. It's just wild. And yeah, the bands we get are incredible. The coolest shows I've been to in my life have been at Resonant Head.
It's amazing. The other thing I love is like you guys are also welcoming the Hispanic
Mm-hmm.
community around you, right? So I saw you were experimenting with like burritos all of a sudden at concerts,
Mhm.
right? Like what led to that collab? What was
Yeah,
that?
that was
Yeah.
so fitting in with the district and, you know, being a collaborative with Capitol Hill was always the top priority.
Mm.
It wasn't like we want to come in and change everything. No, we want to fit in nicely. And we're a pink building and the inside is like a rainbow. It's like we're sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And so it just always made sense to, we've always collabed with the business. There's not a lot of businesses like Capitol Hill's kind of like vacant right now, has been for the last 15 years.
Not for long though. I would say, I mean, I just see that, what are they calling it? Like the South Shore or whatever. It
Mhm.
just keeps creeping.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great.
Mhm.
But there weren't a lot when we moved in, and so we were doing everything we could with people. You know, we were going to lunch every single day at Tacos Milagros,
Okay.
and we were getting all of our merch from Capitol Hill Graphics right across the street. And Lupita's was there, and at first we were getting like Duros from it wasn't Lupita's, but there's a Chilinos tortilla factory right there too,
Okay.
on Robinson, right on Capitol Hill, and we were getting Duros from them and selling those. Those didn't work out, and then eventually we were like, why aren't we doing burritos? We have Lupita's right there,
Right.
and the burritos are great.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that, and it's been slow, you know, people, and a lot of that is because people don't know we have them,
Mm.
and we have to be consistent about it. But we order them for every single event that we do, no matter what. If we sell, 5 tickets, we'll get burritos. We'll get less burritos, but we'll still do it.
So every ticket gets a burrito? Or
No,
how's-
no. I base, because I just have to order them 24 hours in advance.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm late, and I'll text Junior and be like, sorry, I know it's day of.
I need
no
2
problem. Order in, sir. And so I can kind of gauge how the show's going to go within 24 hours,
Okay.
But no, if every ticket got a burrito, that would be,
That sounds amazing to me. It's like
yeah, that'd be great.
great music, great food.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a win-win.
But we sell
Yeah.
burritos.
But I love that because I would say that traditionally that's not been done often. A lot of businesses kind of keep to themselves, and just because the Hispanic community is there, they don't always embrace it.
Mhm.
So I love to see that where you're even experimenting with the burritos and just being part of that whole
Mm-hmm.
community, right?
Yeah, we work with them a lot. I was on the phone with them today. We're going to do OK Cine has a film that they're debuting at, actually Roy.
Yeah. He was a
connected
Connect,
us.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Shout
we're
out to
doing
Roy.
that at Resonant Head, and any chance we can get to do anything like that at Resonant Head, it's always a yes.
Yeah.
We might have to work around the schedule because their schedule just keeps getting busier and busier, but we'll find a way
Yeah.
to make it work.
What about, let's talk about being a small music venue, and then right now inflation and the economy, it's not the greatest, right?
It's
So
terrible.
you were talking about margins, like let's talk about business and just
Mhm.
like being able to manage that. How do you go about that?
It's, we see prices going up everywhere, and venues are the same way. We're buying drinks for more expensive, and
Yeah.
if our prices are going up, it's not because we're being greedy. It's because it's the only way we're making money.
Right.
Same with ticket prices. A lot of people think like and we haven't had any complaints really about our pricing. We try to keep it as low as we can. And if ticket prices, every now and then we'll get a person, why are you making these tickets so much for certain shows? And we don't pick the ticket prices 99% of the time. It's the agencies that we work with and the artists. They're like, this is what we're selling tickets for. Like, it's what we're selling tickets for across the whole tour. So
Really?
tickets in OKC will be the same price as LA, which, that doesn't
That
make
doesn't
sense.
make sense. Yeah. You would think it'd be market based or even like capacity or like who's on the ticket,
Mhm.
right? That sort of thing.
And so I had a friend recently come from LA to come to a show we had a couple weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, your tickets are right where ours are, but your drinks are so cheap and your
Yeah.
food is so cheap and the cost of living here is so cheap. And I'm like,
Yeah.
really? I don't know. And so when people think of like drinks are more expensive at venues,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason, and it's because we're not open 6 to 7 days a week for 8 to 12 hours, a day. We're
Yeah.
open for 3 to 4 hours, 3 to 4 times a week. So we don't sell as much, and it still costs a lot to turn on our lights, to throw an event. It's expensive.
Right.
We pay rent, we pay the bills that we have. Like I have them all on a list of this Google sheet that's just like, you can just scroll for days.
Because you have to have the staff, you have to have everything there, regardless if the people show up or not.
Yeah.
Like you have to be ready, right?
There's like 50 licenses we have: music licenses, food licenses, alcohol licenses, insurance, like 4 different types of insurance. And it just adds up. The amount of money we have to make per month to break even is really high. So
Yeah.
we've done things like we used to do free waters, and there were 2 things that were happening when we were doing, and I'm using this as an example because it's very touchy to me personally, because I think everyone should have free water. But there were 2 things that were happening. It was slowing down our bar line, which again, our bar, I'm a salesman for alcohol,
Right.
right? For drinks, because that's how we make money. All the tickets that we make, most of that goes to the bands. And if we're giving out free water, that's slowing down the line. And we saw that, like our sales were just low.
Yeah.
And then, so we started selling water bottles for pretty cheap, but we saw this drastic difference in line efficiency and sales. I mean, selling water bottles has paid our rent every month. And that's huge. I mean, if we weren't doing that, we would eventually just close down. So there's certain things that we just can't not do because there's very little that we can do to be able to make that extra money.
Yeah.
And be able to break even, or, you know, if we're lucky enough, make a little bit at the end of the month. So there's just little things like that we have to do to be able to pass that cusp.
Yeah. To me, it's almost like you've got like a carved niche sort of thing, right? Because the capacity that you have is almost like the perfect size to where if you do want to bring this indie artist that's just on the cusp about, you know, to blow up or something like that, it seems like that risk is more manageable, like doing it there versus like, hey, we're going to go big and like try to sell out this arena type of thing.
Yeah. The bigger the venue, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. But if you're losing at a big venue more than you're winning, you're losing big. We do have a lot more flexibility at our size.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you said is the main goal of what we do at Resonant Head, right? We're trying to get these bands that are like, we're going to book them 8 months before the show, and they're going to grow during that time. And after they leave Resonant Head and play here, they're probably never going to play in Oklahoma again. You know, they're just not going to come back.
Just imagine if you're like, hey, I saw XYZ band at Resonant Head before they blew up. How amazing would that be? Right?
Yeah, there's bands we've had like that. 2 bands that we had last year sold out Kane's Ballroom, which is, do you know Kane's Ballroom?
Oh, yeah,
Tulsa? It's
big.
massive,
Yeah.
and it's got a lot of history in it. It's a big deal if you play there. So the difference of that, like the percentage is so much different. And so seeing those kind of things, it's like, you know, you keep winning after the show's already happened. And so those are the main goals, and that's why I love doing what I do.
Yeah. So how do you go about that? You know, you want to catch those rising artists. Are you always just on Spotify, on social media, researching to see like what band's about to pop, or how do you go about that?
It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, everything that I do, everything that I book, it's all because of numbers. And after that, it's just gut feeling. I'm gambling.
Yeah.
That's the other part of my job. I'm just a gambler. The vices that I have at this job are terrible. I gamble, I'm a sell alcohol, and it's all I look at is numbers. So I look at Spotify numbers, I look at Instagram numbers. I don't do a lot of TikTok, although I should.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly those 2. And then a lot of it is just gut feeling. Like if you have an ear for it, you can be like, this band's gonna be good. Like if I was an agent and I hear a band and I'm like, yes, they're gonna make it. Because a good band will continue to get good. There's a lot that goes into it, marketing and scheming and stuff like that. But
Do you have that skill where you can kind of just scrub a few seconds in a song and be like, that's going to be a hit?
I feel like I do. Yeah.
'Cause
I feel like I'm pretty good.
I feel like I could do that too. You know, the other thing I like to do is DJ. And sometimes when I hear like on Friday or whatever, when the new music comes out, like I'm like a few seconds in, it's like, okay, this one's going to take off. This one's not. Like, I don't know. To me, it's like, that's a skill in itself, right?
Yeah. You learn how to, you learn your fan base, right? And what our customers like and what your fans like and stuff like that. Like you got to keep bringing those shows back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just all it is. It's the gut feeling is a pretty big part of it.
What about exploring different genres, right? Like right now, Latin music for sure. I'm sure you can explore a lot there, but even like the K-pop and all these different type of genres, you could probably experiment with that, right? Do you do that?
Yeah, we're multi-genre venue. There's a lot of like, we haven't been successful with hip hop and comedy and country.
Okay.
It's not our lane yet, you know, or maybe it's just never our lane. Like a lot of venues have their lane. Like ours is very much indie rock, but in Oklahoma is like a really big shoegaze and hardcore scene.
Yeah.
So the hardcore kids and like the shoegaze fans are always going to come out for any band that's in that realm. Like they know all the bands. And so those types of shows do really well for us. And then indie rock, if I even have a hunch that this band's going to grow from what they've been, like I'll jump on it for sure. So yeah, we test different things. We're doing the dance nights. We have our first like Spanish dance night coming up. It's called Reinas. It's we're doing that right after the OK Cine, actually.
Okay.
And we're gonna see how that does.
Awesome. So explain that to me. It's just like, if I imagine Reinas, I'm talking about maybe like Selena or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Not a big music scene for me. It's kind of new for me, so it's something that I have to learn and kind of get familiar with. But we always want to try everything. We want to, we want to have something for everybody, and see how. Because at the end of the day, it's like if it doesn't work, we just we move on.
Right.
Because we have to. We're a business. We have to do what works.
Does it feel like you're finding like keeping your head above water, or is it like every month it's like, hey, challenging to like make things work and making sure you're on the top of the game because those margins are so thin?
It's been challenging up to this point.
Yeah.
But it's getting better. We're still under water, metaphorically, but we're coming up, we're seeing that. And we're not even at 2 years yet. And it's a good feeling knowing that like our second year was so much better than our first year, even if it wasn't, what we had hoped or wanted it to be. We're still gaining that reputation and that success. And we have projections, the numbers, make sense and keep going up for a brighter future.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
One of the cool things I noticed about your background is you said that your dad was like your best friend, right? So, his career and what he's doing completely different than the career that you've chosen. Has his career or his upbringing been an influence to you? And if so, how did that impact you?
Him and I are very, very similar in our personality. He's super outgoing. He's got a lot of friends. Like I remember that growing up, he just always had friends. Like when Facebook first started, I was like amazed at how many Facebook friends he had.
Yeah.
Man, my dad is kind of like a rock star in what he does. And he's a social worker.
Okay.
And he's had, all sorts of jobs and working in all sorts of districts and areas. And I really, really looked up to him, like completely. And we still, we talk every day. We have so many inside jokes. And yeah, he is my best friend. Our career paths are completely different though.
Yeah.
I could see like if I went the social, I'm blanking now. Is it this late? The social work route. My sisters did that. I would be good at it. I think I really would. But that's just not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I have my own challenges and goals and aspirations. And a lot of the creativity and the strength that I get and the patience that I get is all from my mother, who's, the introvert of the relationship between her and my dad. Very kind and always puts other people before her and so passionate and loving and kind and worries a lot and stuff like that. And so I have a perfect mix of my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
But yeah, and she's got a different career path too, and a completely different person than my father. But
yeah, one of the things I do with my friends is I'm always pitching ideas and running things by them. So if your dad's your best friend, do you run some of these ideas and, hey, I'm thinking about doing this or doing that? Like, do you go for him to that, that guidance or what?
I keep everything kind of internal, and I'll ask my wife about it. And I don't ask my wife for all of the creative advice because she's very much a realist and very skeptical and doesn't like the risk and doesn't like change. Moving houses for her would probably, just wreck her at this point. And for me, I would be like, if I had the opportunity to move to New York tomorrow, like with my family,
right,
like 100% I would do it. That sounds awesome. So I keep all of these thoughts internal because I know it's like I don't make these decisions on my own. I go through my close family and friends for that. But all the ideas that I have, like I go through myself first and convince myself to do them first.
So you keep it close to the chest just because you don't want anybody to talk you out.
I don't know what it is. It
Dream?
kind of sounds bad when I say it out loud, but
No, I get it
promise it's
because
very,
a lot of people might like say, "Hey, that's never going to work,"
Mhm.
but you're like, "No, I know I can make it work."
I think that's
internally."
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of pride in what I do, and a lot of, like you said, I think success in my ideas and stuff like that. Yeah.
You're also into music, right? So you Major Good. You've got a show coming up, right? So tell me about the band. What is it that you do with the band? And tell me about this upcoming show.
So it's a 3-piece called Major Good. I play bass. We have a guitarist. He also sings. I do backup vocals. And we have a very new drummer. We just, our other drummer got busy. And so within the last 3 weeks, we got a new drummer. But we're just like a classic rock and roll kind of 3-piece jam band.
Okay.
And it's super fun, super easy. Yeah, we got a show coming up in March at the Speakeasy. It'll be our first show there, but we're only a year old as a band. But
Emo or no?
no, just like think like Thin Lizzy or like Weezer.
Okay.
Kind of a mix between that, like David Bowie.
Okay. That's a fun lane to be in.
It really is. Yeah.
You can get the crowd hyped up, and it's
Mhm.
like, kind of easy to party music.
A lot of
type
energy.
thing, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of energy. And the guitarist he's got a 1-year-old as well, so he's also a dad. We're all left-handed, which is a fun fact, I guess. You don't meet a lot of left-handed people, I guess, but we're all, we all have creative responsibilities, and we all bring everything to the table and write together and stuff like that, and that's not common in projects. Projects usually have a lot of competitiveness in the writing, and everyone kind of wants to do something separate, and bands break up a lot and lose members and left and right. It's part of why Spin Cycle broke up. We're getting back together, but we just had creative differences that we couldn't meet in the middle for.
Got it.
But this band feels like it's just so easy.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer of live music, supporting the music scene. For the viewers out there, what's the best way that they can support the movement that you've got going?
I think going to shows and listening to music is the best way you can do it. Supporting them any way you can, because people who make music bands, they put in so many hours, so much work, and they get very little in return. To make money as a musician, you have to make it big. It's the only way. There's bands that will sell out Resonant Head that, will go on tour and break even.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what, really? Everyone thinks music, like venues, or like, we just get so much money, and we don't, and the bands don't. And other aspects of it are getting the money, whatever else we're paying. But if you can support them in any way, buy their merch, buy their music, listen to their music, give them listens, share their music, go to the shows. Like, the best feeling for a band is to play in front of people. And if you're playing in front of 6 people, that doesn't feel very good.
Right.
So if your friend's in a band, please go see their shows, even if it's once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Just make the effort.
Love that. So you think you finally found your lane? You think music is where it's at? You think like this is something you could see yourself in, or what?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I've felt burnt out at this job before, in the short term, but I've never felt like I don't want to be doing this. With craft beer, it was kind of like, I'm ready to move on from the industry. This industry is like, yeah, I think this is it.
The managing, the talent buying, social media, burrito tasting, burrito reviews, right? So I think you've got a lot of lanes you can explore, right?
Yeah, it's a broad industry for sure. There's a lot of fun you can have with it.
Yeah. Important question: green salsa or red salsa for the burritos?
Red.
Red?
Yeah.
No way. I'm a green salsa guy. Red.
It's so flavorful.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about Lupitas, the red salsa is creamy.
Mhm.
It's more orange. It's just got so much flavor. It's hotter though.
Okay.
Very spicy.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Before we sign off, I want to give you the stage. Plug in all your social media, both for Resonant Head and then your bands, everything you've got. Where can people find you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Resonant Head is Resonant Head social media. I run that social media. So if you go and follow, I'll know.
Yeah.
It's a really it's a really nice social media platform. So just go take a look at it.
Like the branding and then all the posters for the shows. It looks great.
I'm super proud of it. We just hit 10K, so we just want to keep that number going up. It feels good. Major Good OKC or Major Good the band. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Put in the description.
Yeah, just type in Major Good. You'll find it. That's our band page. Come to any show we have coming up. We've got a few. And then my personal is Making It Patrick. I'm a pretty positive person, so shoot me a message and we can connect.
Awesome. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Patrick Glueck on the Maverick Podcast. In dreams, we trust.